Two vehicles, very difficult to purchase in 2023 because of limited supply. The Toyota RAV4 gas hybrid and the Toyota RAV4 plug-in hybrid. I couldn't decide on which one, so I bought two of them. So I'm going to tell you which one in 2024 do I recommend that you purchase. You may be surprised at my answer. It's Ron Brown with Tech for Senior, where we make videos to help seniors understand technology and to help them purchase new vehicles. Today I'm going to look at two very difficult cars to purchase, and that is the RAV4 plug-in hybrid and the RAV4 gas hybrid. Before we get started with the video, I'd sure appreciate that like and subscribe. Everyone at Tech for Senior is a volunteer, and we work hard producing these videos. And in this video, I had to go out and buy two vehicles. So let's get on with the video. So you should watch this video if you are considering purchasing either of these two vehicles because they are quite different, but somewhat similar. You should watch this video if you're interested in electrification, you're thinking about buying an electric car of some sort. This talks about hybrid technology, which I think you'll find very interesting. Now, I want to put it all in perspective. I live on the west coast of Canada. I appreciate that this video will be shown internationally in various countries around the world. So I just wanted to give you a rough idea of where I am, where I live, and the attitude of electrification in Canada. So in 2035, the Canadian government has decided that there will be no more gas engines sold in Canada. That's about 11 years from now, so an ambitious goal to obtain. As you move west, the interest in electrification for cars, I think, increases. In British Columbia, where I live, there's actually a very high demand for electric cars. Well, I don't actually live on the mainland. I live on Vancouver Island, which amazingly has the highest number of Teslas per capita in all of Canada. We are very green orientated, and on the street I live in Comox, British Columbia, there are only two gas engines left from people. We have most of them are Teslas or hybrids now. So I am in an environment where it is pretty normal to use an electric car. So let me give you some personal background on how this all happened. I want you to remember a specific date, and that would be June of 2023. The reason that's important is because that was a big family event for me, and we had decided that we wanted a new vehicle for that event. Now, up until about 4 years ago, we owned a home in Arizona, and we traveled back and forth. I had an old beater here in Comox we used for popping around doing grocery shopping, which wasn't that reliable, and it was getting even more unreliable as we moved along. So we decided that probably in 2021 that we were going to replace that vehicle and started looking in early 2022. Now in early 2022, we were still in the resolving pandemic. In fact, the car lots looked a lot different than they do now. They had no cars, none. So in 2022, the car lots looked very different than they do now. So my wife and I started looking, usually on Fridays, we'd go for lunch and spend the afternoon looking at each dealer, looking at the cars, trying to make a decision. And we had a very difficult time because there were no cars. It was a very bizarre situation. And any used cars that were around, they were certainly more money than the new cars. It was a confusing time and very difficult to try and purchase a new car. So we had a challenge there. Also, we thought it would be a good idea to, because of the climate we live in, it would be a very good idea if we looked at possibly a hybrid or some sort of electric car. Now, it was a stroke of luck that my partner in Tech for Senior, Huey Popluck, introduced me to a man by the name of Mike Ungerman. I got to know Mike, and he had a plug-in hybrid car and was very much into electric vehicles. We arranged to produce a series on Tech for Senior about electric cars and how they work. We did this in the later 2022, and we produced the series for the 2022 year of Tech for Senior. This was very helpful in my wife and I deciding our final purchase consideration. So we decided to purchase a RAV4 because of the popularity. Also, the RAV4 hybrid system was the same that they used on the Prius, and they had been around for 20 years. Most of the taxi cab fleets around the world use Priuses. It's rock-solid technology with wide appeal. So we thought we couldn't go wrong in buying a RAV4 hybrid. And we thought it was probably a good idea to buy a plug-in one so we wouldn't use gas. So with our decision made, we headed off to the Toyota dealership. Now, I did have an in at this particular dealership because I knew the sales manager. His name was Dennis. Dennis introduced himself, and then we teed up with a salesman. I sat down and said, "You don't need to discuss this. I've made up my mind. I want a Toyota RAV4 plug-in hybrid." I had my checkbook there, and I said, "I'll take one and I'll write you a check." And he sort of smiled and said, "Well," he said, "there right now is a 3-year waiting list for them. They're made only in Japan." He said that we could certainly put your name on a list, but I won't be getting the car for 3 years. Well, that's not going to help me because I needed it for, remember, the June of 2023. So we discussed the options. He said, "What about a gas hybrid?" And I said, "Well, that's okay." And we looked at that, and he said, "We probably are looking about a year to a year and a half, but as the pandemic finishes and supplies are going to increase," he said, "I think things are going to change." So we indeed ordered a gas hybrid in addition to ordering the plug-in hybrid. As I left the dealership, I dropped by Dennis's office and I said, "You know, this is a weird dealership. You don't have any cars. It's 3 years to buy one. What is going on?" He winked at me and said, "You'll have your gas hybrid in March of 2023. So to their credit, in March of 2023, our gas hybrid arrived at the dealership, and you'll be able to see that in the picture behind me. Now, for those of you who are wondering, do we plug it in? How does this run? What do we do with this vehicle? What's different about it? Well, if I gave any one of you that vehicle to drive, you would not notice anything about being a hybrid. You can't tell when the engine starts versus electricity. The only thing that you would notice that would be different is instead of filling it up with gas every 10 days, you would fill it up with gas maybe every 2 months. There's also a screen in the infotainment center which has a flowing diagram that shows you when you're driving where the electrification and charging of the internal battery comes from. This is very interesting for newbies. We call it a newbie screen in the electric car stuff. So we call it a newbie screen. After about 3 months, I settled into Willie Nelson and Google Maps, and I haven't looked at it since. But it is interesting initially when you get it. That's all it is. It's a hybrid car that has an electric motor and a gas engine along with a fuel tank. You can't tell when it switches from gas to electric. You'll drive it, it'll be just fine. The only thing, and you still put gas in it, there's nothing different. So one of the key purchase decisions you're going to have to make is the cost of these vehicles. Now, I am in Canada. These are out-the-door prices in Canadian dollars in 2023 in Comox, British Columbia. These are going to vary widely depending on what part of the world you're working in. So let's look at the prices. So the RAV4 gas engine is about $35,000 out the door. If you look at the RAV4 gas hybrid engine, it's $3,000 more, which works out to about $38,000. Now, the RAV4 plug-in hybrid, which has a much bigger battery where you don't necessarily have to use gas, we'll discuss that in a minute, is $15,000 more than the basic gas engine, putting it at about $50,000. So you have your base model at 35, your gas hybrid at 38, and your plug-in hybrid at 50. Now, for those of you who are thinking about buying a RAV4, the thing that you need to know, they announced last month that in 2025, the gas-only engine will not be sold in North America, maybe worldwide, I'm not sure, but it will not be sold in North America. So your entry level into the RAV4 will be the gas hybrid. So I had the enjoyment of using our vehicle for about 8 months. We fell in love with the car, and in the back of my mind, I always worried about the day when that second car would arrive, and that would be the plug-in hybrid. Well, after 8 months of driving this and thinking this was the absolute best vehicle, I got the dreaded call from Toyota. Yes, the new plug-in hybrid had arrived. What was I going to do? And I sort of dragged my feet going down to the dealership, knowing that I didn't want to pay another $12,000 more than I'd paid for my vehicle, which I love now. But anyway, I went down to the dealership and they started working on the financing, and I did a test drive with the salesman. And it was very interesting because the two cars drive a lot differently. Instantly, when I sat in the Toyota RAV4 plug-in hybrid, it drove much differently because of the added weight. It felt like I was driving one of the Suburbans I was used to. It was a very nice feeling car. So this car was a 2024 plug-in RAV4 hybrid. So after sitting with the salesman for about 3/4 of an hour and really salivating over this new car, I was going to hold my demands because I did not want to really pay a lot more money because I love that gas hybrid Toyota. Well, when they presented me with the offer that it was only $10 more a month to get the plug-in hybrid, guess what happened? I drove the new car home. I now have a RAV4 2024 plug-in hybrid that didn't cost me any more money. Now, how did that all work out? Well, the first thing is that in Canada, there was a subsidy on the plug-in hybrid. So there was a federal subsidy of $5,000 and a subsidy of $2,000 from the British Columbia government. So I got $7,000 off that $12,000 difference, which meant there was $5,000 left. Well, as you'll see in this picture, it's plugged in my garage, and I just have it plugged into 110, and it plugs in the car. So basically, this vehicle is a gas hybrid car, just like the other one was, except it has a much bigger battery. And this battery will allow me to drive around 80 kilometers or 50 miles on a charge, no gas used. However, it still has the same engine, gas tank, and car design as my gas hybrid had. But it gives me the option of only using electricity as we run around town, which is 95% of our use. It also allows me to plug it in my garage. I do have a separate panel I put in last year when we did a house renovation to put a level 2 charger in, but I don't think I'm going to do that because we just plug it in and leave it overnight, and it works fine, and it's plugged in and runs. So we have a gas-powered hybrid, or we have a plug-in hybrid. Which vehicle would I recommend? And the answer to that really is it depends. It depends on a lot of factors. So the first factor is your attitude and the area that you live in on electrification of cars. The second is, of course, the attitude of your government. These cars are expensive, and if they want to convert and get rid of gas-powered cars, then as you saw in this case, there is about a $12,000 difference between these two vehicles. Canada, without that $5,000 from the federal government, $2,000 from the BC government, that $7,000, then would it have been practical for me to buy this plug-in hybrid? Which brings me to the third thing, and that is, how much are you going to drive? The gas hybrid was so fuel efficient, I calculated that I would only be putting $300 of fuel in. Well, I'll let you do the math, but at $300 a year into $12,000, I'm not sure I'm going to be around that long, so it would not really have been a good financial decision. Now, my final comment is really about the plug-in hybrid. I think this is amazing technology, and I'm so excited that I never have to buy gas again. If I wanted to, I could, but I'm probably not going to do much outside the 50-mile range it has for charging. But remember, in this car, I have a complete gasoline engine. It has all the oil change, oil filters. It has all the components of an ICE, or internal combustion engine. It is also very expensive. So your decision to purchase either of these two vehicles really depends on the type of driving that you do. Both these vehicles get their best performance in urban driving. City driving, such as taxi cab fleets, put a lot of miles in very short distances, and these work great. One of the problems, of course, is if you live in a rural area and you're going to be doing a lot of highway driving. If you look at both these vehicles when you're driving on the highway and compare them to the gas-only RAV4, then there is not a lot of benefit. The added weight when you're driving on the highway really limits the effectiveness of fuel saving in these vehicles. So it really depends on the type of driving that you're going to be doing. So what are my final thoughts as we start 2024? Well, I will enjoy driving my 2024 plug-in hybrid RAV4 Prime. The purpose of this video was really to highlight the difference between a gas hybrid and plug-in hybrid, both of which I owned this past year. I do want to talk about two more vehicles I have some personal knowledge about. The first is the picture behind me, which of course is a Honda CR-V. My brother lives in Vancouver. He purchased this vehicle recently. It's just a little bit cheaper than my RAV4 Prime. It is a plug-in hybrid from Honda. It's called the CR-V. He is, of course, a very big fan of RAV4s, but couldn't wait the 3 years to get one. So he had no trouble getting this. It was quite easy to purchase it, and so far he's been very happy with it. You may want to look at this. The second vehicle I think you should think about is this one, which is a friend of mine just purchased. It's a Mitsubishi. Now this is an interesting vehicle. It is a plug-in hybrid, but it is a 7-passenger vehicle. It costs about the same as my RAV4 Prime, but it has one unique feature. Now, as I mentioned to you, in my vehicle, it has, of course, an internal combustion engine. Well, this vehicle, although it's a hybrid, it doesn't. It does not have an internal combustion engine. Well, how does it get its power? Well, of course, it's powered by battery, but yes, you put gas in it and fill it up. But what happens is that the engine in it is actually a generator. It generates electricity that powers the electrical wheels. So as you're driving along, you don't know it's switching from back and forth, but if you do run out of electricity in your hybrid, then of course it switches to gas, but that is not an internal combustion engine. It is a generator powering the wheels. They've been doing this a long time, so they're very good at it, and it's a very interesting car and extremely popular. So you might want to have a look at that, and it is a 7-passenger. Well, it's Ron Brown with Tech for Senior. I hope you've enjoyed this video, I'd sure appreciate that like and subscribe, and we'll keep you notified of more videos we make this year in 2024. I want to wish everybody a happy new year, and until we see you again, have a great day.